What is going on, guys? Happy Monday, January 16th, 2023. Your market update. We'll try to keep this short and pithy to start the week here, and get a number of things to talk about. I think we'll break it out into a few different videos, though, as well. And some new things we'll be kind of tracking here every day as we look in the markets and see what's going on. So, again, let's jump into a few of the things, kind of checking the news of the day. I find this hilarious that the Nigerian inflation rate has gone down. We've talked about this before. The CBDC in Nigeria, the e-Naira, is absolutely abysmal. They have almost zero adoption rate. Yeah, Bitcoin adoption rate is off the charts there. So is that why inflation's down? So a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. That's not quite why necessarily. However, I do think it's funny that the inflation rate is down there, and they have people there that are loving Bitcoin and not about the spy coin, the government-run, Fed coin, e-Naira coin. So something to kind of note there for the future, and kind of just keep in the back of our mind as to what's going on. So as for America, let's check and see what's going on here on the indexes. So not much movement again today necessarily. You know why? It's because it's a day off. So the things aren't moving. So this is the reason we check this though is really to kind of get a look at the the DXY, the Bitcoin price, things like that, things that are generally kind of just moving regardless, and these things still move. I mean, things get shut down for like certain days of the year, actually, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But things are happening in the background. Like let's be honest, you still have to kind of watch the news and see what's going on, even if the markets are actually shut down here, because after hours is one of the like silver, for instance. Silver moves in in overnight, like the commodities. I gotta find this article, but it was said that if silver had not been manipulated overnight, when no one else can jump in the markets besides the commercial banks, things like that, silver would be at around like $230 to $250 an ounce of silver right now currently, if all the overnight manipulation was not in the silver price, and they weren't able to do that, and that was all stripped out, and that was not allowed, I guess, or what have you. So think about that. A lot of this manipulation, the paper selling and the downward force pressure on these assets, especially commodities, things like gold and silver, are just manipulated. It's just artificial. Eventually, markets actually do react, and the free markets do actually overtake that. And that's what I have been positioning for 10, 12 years, is what the free market is actually going to do going forward, which is overtaking the manipulations over the Davos crowd that's meeting right now, and overtakes all their manipulation in the markets. That can only last for so long. Nature's law eventually comes back, and the pendulum starts swinging back the other way and just destroys everyone as it flies back the other way. So again, right now, where we're leaving things off, the DXY is at 102, and it's in this comfortable spot, we'll say, for now. There's still a lot of emerging markets that are really struggling. There's still a lot of higher rates across the board here that people are dealing with, whether they're credit cards, variable rate, mortgages, things like that. So again, something to keep an eye on. But you see this downward move, obviously, over the last couple of weeks. Someone's in here buying up bonds and driving rates down, and they clearly don't want these bonds up, the prices up there. That's for sure. And this hence why the DXY has sold off and it is down as well at the exact same time. So speaking of bonds, let's check that out and see what the 10-year is doing. And what do you know? Over the last couple weeks, it sold off the exact same thing. These aren't in total lockstep, but they're again somewhat close to each other, obviously, in the way they move. The correlation is pretty high. Obviously, not a correlation to 1 by any means, but they're close. And then let's check out cryptos. Obviously, Bitcoin, obviously, huge run up. It now peaked over 21,000 here. It's almost up a percent on the day. So there's a lot of people that think, again, technical analysis, I'm more of a fundamental guy. The technical analysis, I can do it a little bit. I'm not an expert in technical analysis. There's a lot of TA guys and gals that are saying that they think this could pump up here a little bit, 2021, 25 even, and then it probably comes back down. Just the greater macro fundamentals of what's going on. The thesis still holds of just crazy times going forward. Rates either continually to rise, slower rises, or just kind of flatlining. Still going to have higher rates, still going to have probably problems throughout the year, recession, things like that, maybe worse. So what does that do for global liquidity? I don't know. We'll see. We have the speeding trains. We just said that DXY is selling off, and the bond market, someone's in there buying bonds and driving the yield down. So that liquidity is going to be going up. No. So that's something to really keep an eye on and see what happens, because Bitcoin generally is not an inflation hedge necessarily in the short term. Over long terms, it is 5-10 years, as I'll show you in a second. But it's more of a debasement hedge when it's sucking up global liquidity. Gold and silver, Larry Lepard talks about this all the time. Gold and silver will tend to move first a lot of times, and they kind of did this time as well. Gold's up to, and we'll check here, gold is up to 13, over $1,900 an ounce. And again, this is moving over the last few weeks. It's crazy to see what's happening here. So let's check out. So this is over the last 4 months or so. Look at this move. You have these bottoms from 1681 all the way up. That's what a $250 or somewhere around there, $250 price move. So massive moves in the market just in the last couple months, and you're seeing this undulation all over the place, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating to watch. We're going to keep documenting it here to see what's going on. Again, my base case, and silver's done similar type of stuff. Obviously, these big moves. So my base case is that, again, commodities, primary assets are going to be really big drivers of the economy over the next couple decades. So being in these, whether it's base metals and things like that, but just having some type of analog money in your portfolio, just having something outside the system, some physical things to hold on to is great. I mean, I love it. I still think Bitcoin is the fastest course. It's going to blow the technologies. It's going to blow the metals and all these commodities. Over the long term, it's going to blow these all out of the water, I believe, after all my study. However, I still don't have everything in Bitcoin. Again, this is not financial advice. It's freedom advice. It's being sovereign. It's being independent. It's being resilient. And that's what we want to try to do here. And that's my goal, is to question everything and be ungovernable, be a person who is a model for society, who is a very hard human being to capture, to control, to manipulate. And crude oil, again, let's check out crude's chart here again. We've seen this huge driver down, really was the last 6-7 months, driving the price of oil down. Got up here and things started to get really crazy. We see a lot of crazy stuff happening. Well, what do we know? Oil was getting driven back down. We have a small little bump here, almost up to 80. But again, we're going to really keep watching these drivers as to what's happening going forward, because it's going to play massively into the markets and what's happening. I mean, lumber, we can see here, obviously, let's look at the 5-year. So we can see the huge spikes during COVID, and we see this just dropped over the last year, just through the floor, almost back pre-COVID levels. So very, very interesting stuff to just keep an eye on. Copper. Some of these things are very, very interesting, and they're big drivers of the economy going forward. And primary assets, this financialization, trying to arbitrage bond prices and lending, saving short and lending long, things like that, what banks do. All this arbitrage is going to get obliterated over the next couple decades, because, as we know, as we've constantly been pointing out, the real inflation through shadow stats, go check these out. This is, obviously to see what real inflation truly is, and it's, triple what, they're saying, a triple or more what they're saying it is. But this is the big driver right here. The debt, as we know, this has to keep going up. Guys, this is why you want to be your own central bank and to short what the government is doing, because they are manipulating everything. They're going to keep printing everything. You want hard assets. You can get in the market. Again, I'm not a big stock guy. I know a lot of guys like Greg Manarino. There's a lot of guys out there that are in there and they're buying up shares of this and that. That's not me. I mean, I want controllable things. There's a time for stocks, but it's when the market has been completely cleared out. Like there's a massive forest fire that cleans everything out. People are good actors or rational actors, because I don't trust the markets. I don't sit here all day long trying to adjust markets and technical analysis and study 10Qs and 10Ks and all that. That's not my game. I don't think the average person has time to do that. They just need to be resilient and independent outside the system. Maybe have some stuff in the system. Maybe if it's your existing 401k or your pensions, things like that, you got to be careful with that, because that's in the paper system. That's in this system with all this debt. So that's very susceptible to what's going on. Again, not financial advice. However, me as a hedge fund, my own family office, I know I need some things outside the system. I need primary assets. I need things, the actual base layer assets. So I need things outside the system that are bear assets, that are hedges to this, that give you, some alpha and some beta. Which, meaning alpha, you're just beating in the market straight up, and then your beta is you're beating the correlation. You're you're beyond the correlation of all the markets just moving in synchronization. I want to be, contrary to that in at least half my portfolio. We'll say just, rule of thumb ish, around there. Again, we know this is going to happen. We know that the game plan. Ben Bernanke's told us, as we've talked about many times on this blog, Ben Bernanke's told us, the IMF has told us, financial repression is the game. They're going to continue debasing. It's the only way they can get themselves out of this debt. The governments, at the behest of their people, or at the demise, or at the, can't think of the right term, but they're going to throw their people under the bus and inflate the currency away over time and bring down the debt to GDP. That's what will happen. It's the only real politically acceptable thing they can do, because the public won't take it any other way. As you can see here, this is what kind of been talking about the whole time, right? When they brought rates up to 20% before, we were at 35% debt to GDP. Well, now we're at 120%. Historically, that's never been, that you can't keep going on from that. So the only way they possibly have to somewhat remotely land this plane somehow that has no landing gear and half the wings are shot off is to financially repress by inflating the currency and inflating their way out of this, which means higher inflation and higher prices for the average person. And again, I'm going to show you, again, we've been talking about this a ton. And speaking of landing the plane here, is going longer again, of course, than I want it to be. But again, when you're holding the dollar against Bitcoin, this is what happens. You are losing purchasing power rapidly. And I want to show you some sites, excuse me. Again, like we've been saying here too, if you've been trying to buy eggs, this is what happens when you're holding in dollars. It just keeps going up and up and up and away. If you're holding in Bitcoin, the hardest asset known to man, you now have something where your life is getting infinitely cheaper. You're buying farms. Not only can you afford eggs, you can afford farms where the person holding dollars can't even afford eggs anymore. So a couple of sites really quick, and I might do some separate videos on this, but priced in Bitcoin 21.com and time chain stats, and then Clark Moody's dashboard about the dashboard of Bitcoin, which is absolutely incredible, and then time chain stats. Some really, really cool sites. We'll dive into more of these going forward, but time chain stats is, priced in Bitcoin, and I'm trying to get the guy who runs time chain stats to add this in here as well, but this site is incredible. So like right here is a great example. Pricing everything. You can price everything in Bitcoin, which I'll show you in a second. And so you have here, you can play with this in log scale and not log scale. You can do it in Satoshis, in fiat, everything. So this is your life getting more and more expensive if you hold in dollars. This is the median price of a home over the last 12 years. As you can see, it just up and to the right. More and more dollars to buy the same exact home. However, if you've been holding Bitcoin, the hardest asset, and again, now extrapolate this out another 10 years, or another 20, or another 50 years. These charts will keep diverging, and dollars will keep going up and up and up, as we know, because they have to keep printing currency, right? They have to keep doing this. So life is going to continually run away from the average person over time, and you're going to have too much month at the end of your money. And then if you hold Bitcoin, though, you're going to see this continually grow as well. So watch, like as this happens, say this is now and then going into the future. Just imagine this is the next 10 years. You'll see your life continuing, the orange line, continually getting cheaper as you hold the hardest asset in the world. And everything in your life gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper until it goes to zero almost. It almost goes to zero, basically. You can't tell what the difference between zero and what it's at, actually. So if you're holding Bitcoin, this orange line, your life just got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So you were at 2,000. This is in Bitcoin, so it's not in SAT. So it's in Bitcoin. So a median price house was 10 years ago, it was $279,000 or 2,057 Bitcoin, right? If you keep extrapolating this out, you now, 10 years later, you're looking at $500,000. So you need twice as many dollars you need to go find to buy the same house. However, if you've been holding in Bitcoin the whole time, you now have 25. So you went from 2,000 Bitcoin you needed, and now you only need 25 Bitcoin. So when I saw these charts, 3-4 years ago, this is what blew my mind and really quickly helped me reverse course and understand, oh, yeah, you've got some of this Bitcoin brand, but you need to go all in. And in all in, I mean, really good chunk of my liquid net worth that was just kind of sitting there in cash, things like that. Maybe I was kind of allocating more toward gold, silver, things like that, other assets. You need to start reversing and doing a large chunk of that now towards Bitcoin actually instead, because this is the true savings vehicle, the 21 million hard cap or the 2.1 trillion Satoshis hard cap. There'll never be more than that. It's infinitely divisible, but that doesn't mean there's more pieces to it. You can't inflate the supply away. The supply that there is, it just gets more and more valuable, and you accrue more and more purchasing power. Each slice of the pie accrues more and more purchasing power over time. So these charts right here, you can go. So like I said, you can go in here. You can. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can go in here, look at Bitcoin versus fiat, Bitcoin versus precious metal, Bitcoin versus commodities, everything. Cars, equity markets, houses. It's huge, obviously, as you can see. So you can see this really, really cool site priced in Bitcoin and see everything. Like I said, houses, average new car, used car, everything. So go check this out. These are awesome sites, free to use, free to anybody, and you can start, seeing average new car. What is it priced in Bitcoin? What happens over time? So I'm going to do not in sats. I'm not going to do log scale either. So you can see this is the average. Oops, I'm going to do all. And this is, again, Bitcoin. As you guessed, if you held in Bitcoin in the last 10, 12 years, your life now becomes infinitely cheaper and you can afford more and more and more cars. Now, for the average car, takes, 2 Bitcoin for the average new car. Where before, 10 years ago, it took 2,000 Bitcoin. So, again, we can keep doing this, and I should layer in fiat just to see here. So if your life in fiat, the average car 10 years ago was $25,000 and now it is $37,000. So you got to find 12,000 more of these dollars, and hopefully your wages have gone up in that time and correlated with that, and most people's haven't. So this is where, again, when you have true money and the goalposts aren't moving constantly, the interest rate's not moving, you don't have things kind of flying all over the place and constantly in flux, you can actually plan your life, and you can actually play out the scenarios and schedule out what's going to happen in a way. I guess planning really is the best word. You can plan out exactly what it is you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. So that's the market update for today, guys. Again, there's not a ton going on, so I wanted to kind of clue you into this and as to how I look at things and frameworks of why I say Bitcoin is the best money we've ever had. Because when you can have a control in your experiment, you don't have all these variables. When you're using dollars or any fiat currency, you have all these different variables. You've got bond market prices and deflation, or you got deflation and inflation. You've got debasement. You've got inflation. You've got currency printing. We're buying bonds, now we're not buying bonds. You got 12 guys in a room trying to figure out what's going on, and all these different market forces you're having to figure out. Where in Bitcoin, at the end of the day, all you have to worry about are the properties, the hardest properties that don't change. Mainly the one of them being the biggest in these terms, at least, being the 21 million hard cap. And your piece of the pie is all the pieces of the pie you have getting more and more valuable over time, as you can see here, when it cost 2,000 to buy a home, 2,000 Bitcoin, or 2,000 Bitcoin to buy a car, and now it costs you 2 Bitcoin to buy a car. Well, you can plan on that. You can plan on the halving schedule being every 4 years at a predictable supply up until 2,140, when the new miner reward subsidy is done. And then the whole system is working on peer-to-peer people transacting just like normal and transaction fees, and that's it. It's really simple. And again, there's other videos we can get into the specifics of that and how that works, but we don't need to worry about that right now, obviously. So hope you got something out of this. Let me know what you got out of it in the comments. Please like and share this video. And I just think it's super important. I'm gonna try to do some individual videos on these as well, and just kind of break into some of these sites and just, again, how to use them. And I think these are just really incredible sites to see exactly what's going on, but really a visual. So many of us are visual to see, oh my goodness, I can't believe my life running away from me in fiat, and look at how cheap life gets in Bitcoin. So I appreciate you, your time and energy. It's the most important asset we have, and it's the only finite asset we have, like Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin is time and time is Bitcoin. The only two finite assets we have. If you know of any others, please let me know what you find, and like and subscribe to the channel, and share the video, please, to someone you think might get something out of this. And we'll see you on the next one.